Former U.S. Senator Bill Armstrong lost his battle with cancer this week, dying at the age of 79. Armstrong was considered by many as the godfather of the Colorado Republican Party and still held significant sway as the president of Colorado Christian University. Eric, is there anyone, I mean, I like John Caldeira's euphemism about the Republican bench as a folding chair, but when it comes to even not just running as candidates, as nominees, is there somebody there in the Colorado Republican Party to pick up that leadership torch, that person who could have the meeting that Bill Armstrong could have had the last, 30, 40, 50 years? Is there someone who could pick up that torch?
One could only wish, and maybe we'd have some different Republican candidates to pick from these days. Bill Armstrong, during his day in office as a, first of all, state legislator, then a U.S. congressperson and a U.S. senator, he was a political powerhouse. This is now 40 years ago or thereabouts, and I think we sometimes forget the magnitude of that powerhouse. I flash back to the 1978 election. Dick Lamb was running for re-election after one term as governor. Bill Armstrong was the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate. They both won, both Lamb as a Democrat, Armstrong as a Republican, won those elections by 60-40 margins. It was a different Colorado. It was a Colorado that wanted to split its ticket, where the independent voter was the king or the queen. And you don't see those days anymore. The number of ticket-splitting voters is down in the low single digits. People are much more rigidly one direction or the other. Bill Armstrong was not somebody I knew well, but he always struck me as having political traits that are too rare these days. He was somebody of character and conviction. He believed what he believed with incredible passion, but he also understood that in politics you don't get 100% of what you believe, and he understood the need to reach across the aisle and compromise. Back to Darrell Glenn, perhaps could take a lesson there. And lastly, he was a person of civility. I kept reading on social media stories, mostly from Democrats, of interactions with him, and they would disagree on issues, but he was always warm, he was gregarious, he listened to people. There was a civility that has also been way too lacking over recent years.
Justine, Eric offers the perfect segue, because I feel the same way. Bill Armstrong was known for his civility, his passion for his own beliefs, but his civility, especially with people across the aisle. Is that a rarity we're ever going to see again?
You know, it feels like that, and you hear more and more of that from people in Congress, that there used to be a time where you knew each other, you had disagreements on the floor and you had disagreements, but you knew each other and you respected each other for what you were trying to do for the country. I hope that that's not, the case, but it seems like just looking at the news, we're becoming more and more divisive, and people are getting more and more along party lines and, not willing to compromise. I mean, love or hate Bill Armstrong's policies, he was well respected, and he was well respected not only in Colorado, but in the nation, for being somebody who could reach across the aisle. And I think that the conservatives have definitely changed in Colorado from, Bill Armstrong's days to now. And I really hope that we can find a common ground and we can vote and elect officials who are going to be able to come up with pragmatic solutions that aren't just, they're not stuck to staunch issues and they're able to move forward.
Patty, what's Armstrong's legacy going to be in Colorado?
Nostalgia, apparently. It's interesting because he was a businessman. He was a businessman. Craig was just talking about Darrell Glenn. In the media, so he understood the media. He would deal with reporters. I disagreed with almost every one of his positions, but he was always civil. He would talk to reporters. He would lay out his positions in a very clear manner, and he would try to work across the aisle. So he created an amazing thing at Colorado Christian University. He will be remembered as someone who really was pushing his beliefs, but also pushing for Colorado.
Craig, you spoke at the Western Conservative Summit. That was the brainchild of Bill Armstrong. What do you think his legacy will be?
Well, that's part of it. And what a creation that was. And how many interesting, diverse speakers he had on. Some, to me, courageous. Herod Vilders was invited. I thought that was interesting about 5 years ago. A lot of controversial, but interesting people. And some liberals, too. But I am old enough to remember Bill Armstrong. And I think, contrary to what you guys are saying, he was known as a hard right-winger. I mean, he was about as conciliatory as Ron Reagan, okay? But the other thing he had, and maybe Ronald Reagan was conciliatory, he'd drink with Tip O'Neill, but he was pretty loyal to Reagan. like Daryl Glenn, he owned El Paso County because Bill Armstrong had a base of support there. There are lots of votes down there, and that's why I think Daryl Glenn did so well in that primary. Those people vote. And he was an old radio guy, and he was nice to the media, and he was a committed Christian. And that's nice, because if he's right about all that, he's in heaven, and good for him.